Welcome to Gasby, where we're with Kenny Sheils, and we'll hopefully do a review of the season. And we've just about to start with him today and take him right back to August when Rangers were out of the SPL. It was in a bit of disarray, and Dundee were promoted. What were your hopes and expectations at that point in time, Kenny?
It was difficult to say because we'd quite a lot of new players coming in, and we were hopeful of trying to get near the top six. And I always said that in the first half of the season is to be in around the top 6th, 7th, to be in a position where we can challenge for the top 6. And I think we sustained that right through to Christmas. We had, people talk about inconsistency, and I suppose that's a good way of summing it up. But we had good runs and then we had poor runs, but we sustained good form away from home. To go through eventually the first half of the season losing to St Johnstone away from home and Hibs away from home right up to January, I think that was really consistent away from home. Our home form let us down, to be perfectly honest, and we weren't able to turn draws into victories, and I was disappointed at the outcomes, but I could see progress being made.
The home form's obviously been frustrating from the supporters' point of view. Having said that, there was obviously a couple of games where referees were pivotal, but I'll not drag you into a referee discussion. You've been involved in enough discussion about referees during the season. But why do you think the away form's been so much better than the home form? Has it been that the style suits playing away from home better, or
possibly that, and the fact that I draw a lot on the team spirit side of things. And if you look at, I know it's not the perfect analogy, but if you look at the two Highland clubs, and ever since Inverness have come up, Inverness and Ross County are making long journeys every fortnight, and it develops a really good atmosphere amongst the players. It bonds this team spirit. And when we travel to games and we prepare and we go to a hotel for a pre-match, and there's a great connection with the players, which helps. This is me trying to answer your question to give a reasonable summing up, James, and I can't answer it, but I know that we don't necessarily go to drop off the game away from home. But I would say from the football perspective, maybe the fact that we're more solid and there's more psychological pressure in the players that, right, we're away from home, we have to be very deliberate in how we defend and how we work out a possession because we're the away team. So psychologically players think differently. At home, you could say we have one of the emptiest stadiums in the SPL because of the size of the stadium, and we only fill about a quarter of it, if that, and that doesn't have a good impact on the atmosphere. But these maybe sound like excuses, but we're trying to establish reasons as to why we haven't played well at home, and they're all contributing. But I think that teams have hit us, and when we've been dominant, and we've lost games we should have drawn or won at home, but I haven't been happy with the home performance this season at all.
It's certainly been frustrating to watch, and looking back, you wondered whether it was enabling teams to hit you on the break. But the game like last night against Hibs became very, very open, and Hibs were able to come up expansively, and I just wondered if you had tried to change the style at all, or was that not a conscious?
At no stage in the season did we try to change the style. Some things are forced upon you when you have to play different systems, but if you look at the games that we did lose and the games that we actually did win at home, the back-to-back ones against Motherwell and Inverness, the expectation, those two teams were in really top form at that time at the beginning of February, and we won both games at home back-to-back, one in the Cup and one in the League, with 2 clean sheets. So it's a psychological thing, and we have to try and get it right for next season.
You didn't feel it was to do with different formations or anything like that?
Formations, people read into formations 4-3-1-2, 4-2-3-1, all of these things formations are only starting positions. It's the ball that dictates the movement and the player's movement. So people have to get that into their heads that, oh, he's not playing with any wingers today. So if we don't play with James Dayton because he's out injured with a bad injury, then there's more emphasis on the left back to get forward and play in that role and get the supply in from the sides from the fullbacks. So there's different ways, and if you look at, people talk about 4-2-3-1, which is the model now, but that becomes 4-4-1-1. There's so many variables within formations. They're only starting positions. Formations are not, this is a 4-2-3-1, that's the way the team plays. That's the starting positions in relation to the movement of the ball. So when the ball goes to right back, it becomes 3-4-2-1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. And I realise these things are adapted as the game
and the game changes the shape. So it's not really a formation. A style of play is a more significant thing. How the teams do they want. We played at Birmingham last night, and they went early to the front, and then they played percentage, and they got balls up and they had runs off it. And when we lost to them 4-2 in the cup, it was similar. And they got second phase balls and they work with that. But I want my players to learn to become better, and I want to challenge them, and that's what they're doing. I would say 90%, and this is where I judge myself, 90% of our players have improved this season. If you go through them individually, you'll find that they've improved.
So, going back to the start of the season, how disappointing was the Stenhouse-Muir Cup game?
Yeah, that was a big disappointment, and again, you can make excuses. It was Mark O'Hara's first game, and the first goal that we conceded from a corner, we had Kyle Leatherin in goals, and I can remember it as well. And the big guy, I forget his name, he pushed one of our players and then spun around and headed, got a clean header. Kyle should have came for it, to be fair. And then the penalty kick against Ryan O'Leary was ridiculous. But we shouldn't be looking at, and I shouldn't be looking at, to give lame excuses like that, because we should be beating St Mirren. Honestly, we should be, and we know that. And they were really on song and on fire at that time. Sorry, I said St Mirren. Stenhouse-Muir.
Probably should be beating St Mirren on Saturday as well.
Well, I hope so. So, Stenhouse-Muir is a team that had been playing well going into the game, and it was really, really disappointing. Really was. And it was the same referee that refereed the League Cup winning, and we were out to defend it, and you'd nearly swear it was written in stone that he correctly didn't give Celtic a penalty at the end, and he incorrectly gives Stenhouse-Muir a penalty against us and to put us out of the cup. So it's these things go round. Yes.
Talking about cups, you must have been pleased with performances against Queen of the South and Inverness in the Scottish Cup.
Definitely.
Where did you feel things went wrong against Hibs? Was it just individual errors, or was it Hibs pressing hard and Leith Griffith's skill?
There was quite a few things happened that day, and your best players, Cammy Bell's one of our best players, and Cammy didn't cover himself in glory that day. Sissoko switched off a couple of times. It's unfair to start selecting individual performances, but you've asked me the question, so those were key factors to the goals we conceded, and they're things you don't, or you can't legislate for. And it was the way it went in the end of the game. For them to score 4 goals was hard to take. It really was.
I understand that. I just wondered how pivotal that defeat was in the cup, because up to that time in the previous 10 games you had only lost 2, and then including the Hibs game you played 9 games and you've lost 6 of them, and I just wondered whether that had some sort of psychological effect on the squad, or...
I don't know. I know that we're in the quarterfinals of the cup and we're going well in the league. We're in the top 6 at that time, and everyone's thinking this is going to be a really good season, but people were jumping ahead of things, and statistics are things you can put together, and that's just typical of football, because you can look and take statistics from any part of any team's season and say, oh, there's October, they only won one match in 7. There's December, they won 4 in a row. Things like that happen within a football season, and people search for answers, and then they establish reasons as to why that happened. Obviously, we were disappointed to lose against Hibs. We lost James Dayton. William Gross refused to re-sign. We've given him a good opportunity in football, and he's still not re-signing. So I had to do what I thought was best for the team and the future of the team. And it was difficult because Rory McKenzie got an injury, and that was hard to take. Again, we've had a lot of injuries this season, if you look at it. Even if you look at last night, influential players like Pascali and Dayton, who had been playing really well. Suzuka was out last night, and Ross Davison, who had come into the team and in the last 2 games and done really well, he picked up an injury, and we missed him, believe it or not. And he's only a young boy. So these are things that happens to all teams, but I think at crucial stages of the season we lost a lot of key players, and that's the manager's hat on. We all talk like that. We didn't win because we lost this player and that player, but I think it's key to having a good bunch of players, and you've got depth beneath that, and we've had to use young players as our depth, and that brings inexperience. The recent performances, having lost to Hibs last night, and the recent defeats against Hearts and Aberdeen, we put out a raw team and a young team that was very inexperienced, but they have to learn somewhere, and there has to be a starting point. And I would rather do that educational part of the team now than start at the beginning of next season. And I think that what we're doing now will sow the seeds for the next seasons.
I think from the fans' perspective, at one point the season offered so much.
Yes.
And then sadly, because of the 2 home games against St Mirren and Dundee, the season tipped the other way.
Yeah.
I realise you were obviously upset, particularly at the Player of the Year event. How sore was the St Mirren and the Dundee result?
Yeah, that was hard to take, because you go into those 2 games, we've just been knocked out of the cup, as you say, and we've got 2 home games against the bottom 2, and you look at that and you think, well, everybody's expectations are right up there, and everybody feels right, we're in the top 6, and we try to keep the players away from that. And the St Mirren game, the 1-1 draw, it was similar to last night's game that finished 3-1, where we'd taken over the game and we'd made the switches again, and we were dominating the second half, and we couldn't get that winning goal against St Mirren, and that would have put us there. And then the Dundee come in, and Gary Harkins had a really good game against us, and he was inspired, and you could see the energy and the whole atmosphere draining out of the players, draining out of the crowd. I said to Jimmy, I turned around and says, God, they're just sapping, the players are sapping here, and Dundee were the better team and deserved to beat us. And that was hard to take, the way in which we lost against Dundee. And then we had to try and pick ourselves up, and we lost against Aberdeen and Hearts. But we're going through the tail end of the season now. 8th, 9th, 7th, it's one of those 3 positions. We're competing against some very good teams, and we've a game now coming up on Saturday, and it is hard to take. You're right, it is hard to take, but we have to rise above that and look at the long-term picture and how we can prepare for the next few seasons.
Looking at the positives, certainly over the season, there's been the away form, and there's also been the introduction of the youngsters. How do you see the position going forward with regard to the youngsters? Because last night, obviously, you started, and I think there was only 4 players that would have been ineligible for the under-20 team. Do you see that as the core of the team going forward, or do you see it continuing to bleed in youngsters with the majority being more experienced? But
I think now, James, at this time of the season, they're getting a lot of game time now, which will stand them in good stead, and I would expect probably about 4 of them to become permanent fixtures during next season. I'm in the market now for a couple of players from England who have got experience. Peter Murphy from Carlisle, left-sided centre back, good distributor, really good experience, over 400 games for Carlisle, and he will come in and stabilise it, because Sissoko is he's not the most vocal defender in the world, and he's a laid-back character. He's got qualities, and young Mark O'Hara at 17 really needs a Manny Pascali to develop him in there, and that would have been a better mix, or Manny Pascali and Sissoko, and the blend is not right defensively there. You know, even in the last few games you can see there where we've been caught out with goals. Young Lee Ashcroft's come in now, and this has given him a good platform for his future, and he's done well. So we've got to try and marry the game time and experience that the young players are getting, and we're taking a bit of a hit at the moment, and you know, we can put statistics and we've won this out of this and we've lost this out of this, but now is not the most important. When we get to August next season and we've got our more experienced new players in, and we're looking at stability there in the squad, I can see us pushing on a little bit more next season.
Okay, Kenny, to sum up the season for us, how would you see it looking back?
It's difficult to say because we're unbelievable. We look at numbers and we could finish 9th this season and be 1 point off 7th, and we can all look at it differently, but my summing up of the season was we were 24 seconds from reaching the top 6. That's where we were, and that's all the statistics that people put together. At the end of the day, it's the league table, and the league table will say Kilmarnock are 9th, or Hearts are 11th, or whatever applies, St Mirren are 11th, sorry, and they look at that as being your position, so you're 11th in the SPL, and that's, I'm sure, for St Mirren and the likes of us, if we finish 9th or 10th or 8th, we feel as if we could have done better. League table, looking at the league table. But if we take the league table out of the equation, I think there's certain things we haven't done as well as we should have. But I think from an entertainment point of view, it's been good. But good is just good. I want it to be very good. And some of the games were very good, the entertainment. And we're developing that team and the players, and you'll see really good entertaining football. Last night that was a good entertaining, and the Dundee game away was entertaining. The first half at Aberdeen was entertaining. We're getting that formula together again, and because of so many injuries and hits that we've taken, so I think it's been a good season, but no better than good. And I want to be able to sit this time next year and say I'm pleased with the season and what we've contributed to the football club, and we're looking to get better again for the 14-15 season. And that's football, that's the way it is. But the most important thing, and apart from the entertainment, is the stability at the club in the playing side. My job's to look after the playing side within financial realms and boundaries that we all are under. So within that, if I look at that picture, I think it's been better than good, if you know where I'm coming from, because of the restrictions, and the chairman's been supportive. Let's make that clear. You know, when I've asked for a player, but then I know the market that I go to shop in and what it meets, and it's important that people understand that. I'm not going to go and look for a player. Like, there's a lot of myths about Ross County having a low budget, and I can tell you there's a couple of players I was in for there that I couldn't afford, and they took them, they got them. And even Motherwell's another myth where they keep a smaller squad, but their players, the top 5 or 6 players, are in earnings that are way above any of the rest outside Celtic. Then you've got St Johnstone, who have got I was after Rowan Vine, and I was after a lot of other people. Fraser Wright left to go there, and they've got a really big budget with a rich person looking after them, and we're carrying a debt over our head, so we're restricted. But we all work together to try and get the best that we can.
Thanks very much, Kenny. It's good of you to give up your time.
Thank you very much.